Perhaps somewhere deep in your bones, you feel an old ache, a subtle yet persistent whisper from the shadows of your childhood. An echo of your first love, your first wound, your mother. Carl Jung once wrote that the mother is not just a person. She is an archetype, a timeless pattern that lives inside each of us, shaping our dreams, our fears, our longings. No matter who, she was loving or distant, warm or unpredictable, the mother figure remains one of the most powerful influences on the human psyche. Jung called this the mother complex, an invisible field of psychic energy that binds us to the emotional imprints of our earliest years. Even when we believe we have grown up and left our childhood behind, the mother complex lives on in the depths of the unconscious. It surfaces in our relationships, our sense of self-worth, our secret fears of abandonment, our desperate need for approval, our hidden shame. We idealize her, we blame her, we resist her, we yearn for her. And yet so often we fail to see the truth. The real mother may no longer be there, but her image, her voice, her presence lives inside us, both nurturing and wounding us from within. This is what Jung called the great and little mother, the nourishing and the devouring aspect, a dual force that shapes who we are and who we might become. This video is not about blaming your mother. It is about seeing clearly the invisible threads that still bind you to the past. It is about recognizing how these unconscious patterns, old loyalties, unmet needs, hidden anger, secret guilt keep you trapped in a story that no longer serves your life. So I invite you now, if this resonates with the quiet corners of your soul, to stay with me for this deep dive. If this kind of content speaks to you, please like this video and subscribe to Wealth Peace I, where we explore the depth psychology of Carl Jung, not for the sake of theory alone, but as a guide for real painful, liberating inner transformation. Stay with me. Let us begin. Carl Jung once observed that every human being carries within them images and patterns far older than their own personal lives. Among these, the mother archetype stands as one of the most powerful, deeply rooted forces in the human psyche. When Jung spoke of the mother, he was never just speaking of your personal mother in her everyday human form. He was describing an inherited psychic image, a timeless blueprint that shapes how we feel, nurtured, protected, or devoured by life itself. In his writings, especially in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Jung explained that the mother archetype is a duality. She is at once the giver of life and the potential destroyer. She is the womb that shelters and the abyss that swallows. She is the source of unconditional love and the source of suffocating dependency. This is not mere poetic symbolism. For Jung, this paradox lives and breathes in each of us. It surfaces in our deepest fears of abandonment, in our hunger for approval, in our instinctual longing for safety and belonging. It lives in our dreams, our projections onto lovers, onto authority figures, onto nature itself. Jung wrote that the mother archetype is the matrix from which we draw our earliest psychic nourishment. But no human mother can fully embody the pure, archetypal mother. She too is human, shaped by her own unconscious, her own wounds, her own complexes. And so what we internalize is never a perfect nurturing presence. It is a mixed imprint, moments of love and care, moments of neglect, moments of engulfment. All these fragments cluster together in the psyche and form what Jung called the mother complex. To understand this complex, we must remember what Jung meant by a complex. A complex in Jungian psychology is not just an idea or a mood. It is a living autonomous cluster of psychic energy, a knot of memories, emotions, and instinctual drives that acts as if it has a mind of its own. The mother complex is precisely this, an emotionally charged constellation that lives beneath the surface of your awareness, silently influencing how you see yourself, how you relate to others, how you set or fail to set boundaries, how you love, how you abandon yourself. Jung observed that the mother complex is different for each person, yet its archetypal core is universal. For some, the mother complex shows up as an idealized image, the eternal mother who must always protect, soothe, and sacrifice. For others, it appears as a devouring presence, an inner voice that suffocates growth and autonomy. These two poles, the nourishing mother and the terrible mother, constantly interplay within us. One of Jung's crucial insights was that this inner split often remains unconscious. We project the mother archetype outward onto people and situations. A partner becomes the good mother or the devouring mother. A boss becomes the critic who withholds praise. The world itself feels nurturing when life goes well and mercilessly punishing when it does not. We rarely realize that these feelings come not only from what is happening now, but from the vast reservoir of unmet needs, disappointments, and fantasies we have carried since childhood. This is why Jung insisted that the mother complex is not simply about blaming one's mother for all of life's difficulties. Rather, it is about seeing how the unresolved relationship with the archetypal mother lives on within you. Your personal mother may have done her best, or failed spectacularly, or something in between. But the complex survives in the psyche as an autonomous force until it is made conscious. Jung believed that one of the greatest obstacles to psychological growth is this unconscious attachment to the mother archetype. He spoke of the regressive longing to return to the safety of the womb, the wish to be held by something greater, to be rescued from the burden of choice, responsibility, and separation. But to individuate, to become a whole mature self, one must, in his words, free oneself from the primordial embrace. This is not an act of betrayal, but an act of psychological birth. He wrote that every individuation process demands a confrontation with the mother archetype. This does not mean rejecting your personal mother, but seeing through the archetypal projections that bind you to infantile patterns. Many people unconsciously remain loyal to the limitations of their mother, not because they consciously choose to suffer, but because surpassing her feels like an unspoken betrayal. This is what Jung called invisible loyalty. It is a psychic bond that says, I cannot be more free than she was. I cannot be happier than she allowed herself to be. And so we sabotage our own growth to maintain an unconscious fidelity to her wounds. Jung understood that this loyalty can manifest in countless ways, repeating her patterns of sacrifice and self-abandonment, choosing partners who evoke her worst qualities, rejecting opportunities that would take us beyond the life she knew. The mother complex is not always obvious. It hides in perfectionism, in guilt, in the internal critic that whispers, "Who do you think you are to want more?" In his work with patients, Jung saw again and again how this hidden mother image could govern an adult life. He noted that those who remain unconscious of the mother complex are forever caught in its spell. But those who dare to face it, to see how they have internalized both the nurturing and devouring aspects, begin to reclaim their psychic freedom. This is the heart of Jung's vision. The path forward is not to demonize the mother or deny her impact, but to integrate the archetype consciously. Integration means recognizing how the positive side, the capacity to nurture, care, and protect, can become your own inner resource. It also means recognizing how the negative side, the devouring voice of criticism and guilt, is not your true self, but a remnant that can be transformed. To Jung, the ultimate task is to become your own internal mother. He did not mean this sentimentally, but rather as a deep psychological necessity. When you become your own mother, you provide yourself with the love, acceptance, and firm boundaries you once looked for outside. You learn to protect the fragile parts of you without allowing the unconscious mother complex to run your life. The mother archetype never disappears. Archetypes Jung taught are eternal, but when made conscious, they lose their tyrannical hold. They become sources of wisdom and strength rather than hidden prisons. In this sense, the mother complex once illuminated transforms from an unconscious fate to a conscious relationship. You do not erase the wounds of the past, but you change how they live within you. This is why, for Jung, individuation is not a rejection of the past, but a reorientation. You stop being a child who waits to be saved. You become the adult who holds your inner child with compassion and firm love. You break the cycle of invisible loyalty by realizing that the greatest honor you can give your mother and your ancestors is to evolve beyond what they were able to heal. Through this lens, the mother complex is not a curse to be resented, but an invitation to do the most radical work of all, to awaken the self, to stand firm in your own life, and to nourish the parts that were once starved of warmth. This is the soul of Jungian depth psychology, not shallow self-help, not quick fixes, but the courage to face the darkness with the light of consciousness. This is what we will carry into the next part of our exploration. How these patterns show up in the living moments of our relationships, our dreams, our daily choices. For now, hold this question gently. What part of you still longs to be mothered by someone else? And what would it mean to step into the sacred task of mothering yourself? If you have stayed with me this far, perhaps you already feel the subtle threads of your own mother complex stirring within you. This is not an abstract theory. It is a living force, an emotional climate that shapes your inner landscape, whether you are aware of it or not. Carl Jung often reminded us that what we fail to make conscious returns again and again is fate. So let us stay here together in this intimate space between your mind and your heart, and begin to look with honesty and compassion at how the mother archetype lives within you now. Take a slow, quiet breath and imagine for a moment that you are standing at the threshold of your own unconscious. There, in the dim light, you see the image of the mother as you have known her. Perhaps tender, perhaps frightening, perhaps absent, perhaps too present, perhaps both. Notice what feelings arise. Do you sense longing, resentment, guilt, shame? Do you feel a tightness in your chest or a softness in your belly? The body always remembers what the mind tries to forget. Jung taught that these feelings are not simply about the outer mother, but about the psychic mother, the archetype that shaped how you learn to feel safe or unsafe in the world. Now imagine a child small and open-hearted, still hoping to be fully seen and held. This is the part of you that still waits for the mother who might come and soothe every fear, who might finally say, "You are enough." This inner child is not your weakness. Jung would say it is your living connection to the self, the whole you are becoming. But to hold this child now means you must become what you longed for. This is the paradox. The mother you once needed must now be found inside you. Ask yourself, In what ways do I still unconsciously wait for my mother's permission? Where do I still feel that I must remain small-wounded, loyal to her suffering? Jung wrote about the dangerous seduction of the mother complex, how it can become a psychic prison that tempts you to stay dependent, to sabotage your own freedom, because freedom feels like betrayal. You may recognize this in the relationships you choose. Perhaps you find yourself drawn to partners who evoke the same wounds: emotionally unavailable, critical controlling, or endlessly needing you to mother them. Perhaps you notice that you keep sacrificing your needs to keep the peace. Or perhaps you rebel against the mother so forcefully that you become trapped in anger, always pushing away, never truly free. These patterns are not your fault. They are unconscious loyalties, Jung would say, ancient bonds forged when you were too young to choose otherwise. But now, you have a choice to see them clearly. Sit with this for a moment. Whisper gently inside, I am willing to see. I am willing to know. One of the most subtle traps of the mother complex is idealization. Jung observed how some people cling to an image of the perfect mother, the loving, saintly figure who could do no wrong. Others cling to her as the monster, the destroyer of innocence, the reason for all suffering. Both are distortions. Both keep you bound. As Jung wrote, the archetype is a symbol, a bridge to deeper truths. But when mistaken for literal reality, it becomes an idol. So ask yourself, how have I mythologized my mother? Have I made her larger than life for good or for ill? And what would happen if I let her be human, deeply imperfect, shaped by her own mother, complex, acting out her wounds unconsciously? Does letting her be human free you a little? Or does it frighten you? Now turn inward again. Notice the voice within you that repeats her judgments, the inner critic that tells you you are not enough, that you should feel guilty for wanting more, that you should stay small, so others can feel comfortable. Jung described this as the negative mother complex, the devouring mother turned inward. It masquerades as your conscience, but is actually a relic of early conditioning. It wants to keep you safe by keeping you invisible. Sit with this voice. Do not fight it. Listen to it. Ask, whose voice are you really? What are you trying to protect me from? You may be surprised at how this voice, once seen, begins to loosen its grip. It is not your enemy. It is an old psychic defense born of a time when your survival depended on staying attached to the mother figure, no matter how incomplete or conditional her love was. In your daily life, notice how the mother complex appears in subtle forms. Perhaps you feel a deep sense of guilt when you succeed, as if you are betraying an unspoken rule: do not surpass the mother's limits. Perhaps you find yourself taking on the emotional burdens of others, playing the eternal caretaker. Or perhaps you swing between longing for connection and fearing engulfment, pushing people away the moment they get too close. All of these are echoes of the original dance between the infant self and the mother archetype. Jung would remind us that the goal is not to repress or cut away these patterns violently, but to bring them into the light of consciousness, to hold them, to understand their roots, and then to choose differently. This is the essence of individuation, the sacred process of becoming who you truly are beyond inherited scripts. If you wish, you can try a simple ritual that many find meaningful. Take a quiet moment, sit comfortably, and imagine yourself as a child standing before you. See this child clearly: the eyes, the small hands, the tender heart. Now in your mind's eye, kneel down and tell this child, I see you. I am here for you now. The mother you longed for lives in me. I will not abandon you. I will not devour you. I will protect you and let you grow. Let this image settle in your body. Repeat it as often as you need. This is not sentimental fantasy. It is the beginning of becoming your own good mother. Jung was clear. This inner work is not linear. Some days, you may feel strong and clear. Other days, you may slip back into old patterns of blame, idealization, or self-abandonment. This is normal. The mother complex does not dissolve overnight. It softens, loosens, transforms each time you bring it into the light. Each time you choose to mother yourself with firmness and tenderness. Each time you break an unconscious loyalty by daring to be more free, more alive, more whole than you were allowed to be. Consider what boundaries might look like for you now. The healthy mother Jung taught nourishes and protects, but does not smother. She allows life to grow. So too must you learn to hold your inner life with both care and discipline. Where do you need to say no to the old stories? Where do you need to say yes to your own needs, your own voice, your own right to exist without guilt? Every time you choose this path, you weaken the hold of the devouring mother within. You reclaim your life from the unconscious. You step out of the shadows of the past and into the quiet power of your own self. This is what Jung meant when he said that the task is not to be good, but to be whole. Wholeness includes your wounded parts, your angry parts, your longing, your fear, your hidden strength. Nothing is left behind. Nothing is denied. The mother within you learns to hold it all, not perfectly, but consciously. If you feel grief arise, let it come. Jung saw grief as a necessary teacher. Grief is the mourning of what never was the perfect mother who could not exist, the lost innocence, the years spent in unconscious loyalty. But grief is also the gateway to freedom. It clears the space for something new, a relationship with yourself that is rooted in truth, not fantasy. As you walk forward, remember that the archetypal mother is vast. She is not only your personal mother. She lives in nature, in creativity, in the deep instinct to nurture life in all its forms. By healing your mother complex, you do not cut yourself off from this primal source of love. You reconnect with it in a conscious way. You become the channel through which this life-giving force can flow freely, no longer tangled in old knots of shame and fear. So keep asking, where does the mother complex still hold me? Where am I ready to choose differently? What would it mean today to be the mother I never fully had for myself, for the wounded child within, for the dreams that still wait for my permission to live? This is the quiet revolution Jung spoke of, the revolution that happens not in grand gestures, but in the subtle daily acts of awareness, compassion, and courage. You do not need to become perfect. You do not need to rid yourself of your past. You need only to stay awake to see what was unconscious and to hold your life gently yet firmly like a good mother would. If you wish, write these words somewhere. You can see them each day. I am becoming the mother I needed. I release what is not mine to carry. I choose to nourish the parts of me that once felt starved. I choose to live fully, freely, and whole. This is the heart of Jung's depth psychology, not a path of denial or endless blame, but a path of profound responsibility to recognize that your freedom depends on the simple yet radical truth the mother you seek lives within. Stay with this. Let it work on you in silence. And know that every step you take toward this inner mother is a step toward becoming who you truly are. Her name was Anna. By all appearances, She was the kind of woman others might envy: competent, warm, a good listener, the sort of friend who remembers your birthday and brings you soup when you're sick. But underneath the surface of her calm eyes lived a restlessness she could not name, a tension that kept her awake at night, an ache in her chest that flared whenever she thought about her mother. Anna had always told herself she was lucky. Her mother, Elena, had done her best. She worked 2 jobs, cooked warm meals, taught Anna to keep the house spotless, to smile at neighbors, to always be good. Goodness in that household was currency. Love was conditional, given when chores were done without complaint, when grades were perfect, when Anna played the role of the polite, obedient daughter. It wasn't that her mother never hugged her. There were moments of tenderness, quiet nights when they watched old movies together on a sagging couch, sharing ice cream straight from the tub. But the sweetness was always tempered by an unspoken threat: do not disappoint me. Do not ask for more than I can give. Do not outgrow me. As Anna stepped into adulthood, she believed she had outgrown that house. She went to university far from home, built a successful career, surrounded herself with friends who called her generous and dependable. And yet the ache never left. It lived in the tightness of her shoulders when she said yes to favors she didn't want to do. It lived in the bitter taste in her mouth when she felt guilty for wanting more than her mother had. It flared when her phone rang, her mother's name on the screen, bringing both longing and dread. In her mid-30s, a string of failed relationships left her broken enough to finally seek help. The therapist, a quiet woman who seemed to listen with her whole body, asked her a question Anna would never forget. When you think of your mother, what do you feel in your bones? At first, Anna wanted to say gratitude. She wanted to say she felt lucky. But when she sat in the silence, eyes stinging, what rose up was not gratitude, it was grief. Grief for the little girl who had learned to shapeshift, to be pleasing and good, to hold back her rage and her wildness, to shrink herself so her mother would not feel overshadowed. One night, Anna dreamed of a vast dark forest. In the dream, she was a child again, standing at the edge of tangled woods. She could hear her mother's voice echoing through the trees, calling her back, but she could not see her. There was fear in that voice, and guilt, and something else, a pull that made Anna feel like she was being swallowed by roots winding around her ankles. She shared this dream in therapy. The therapist smiled softly. "This is your mother complex," she said. "The forest is the unconscious. The voice is the part of your mother that lives inside you. She wants you to stay where it's familiar. But maybe part of you wants to step deeper in." So, Anna began to walk the forest, not in dreams alone, but in waking life. She started small, saying no to invitations that left her drained, letting herself feel anger without apologizing for it. She wrote unsent letters to her mother, pages and pages of words she could never say aloud, the guilt she carried for wanting to move away, the shame she felt for dreading the weekly phone calls, the rage that rose whenever her mother compared her life to her own and sighed, "Must be nice to have it so easy." These letters felt dangerous. Sometimes she burned them in a metal bowl on her balcony, watching the smoke curl into the night sky, like offerings to an invisible mother goddess. The archetype, Jung said, lived in every human soul. Months passed. Anna began to see how the mother archetype was not just her mother, Elena, the woman, but an ancient pattern that shaped how she nurtured and devoured herself. She noticed the negative mother inside the voice that hissed she was selfish, for resting incompetent, for failing, ungrateful, for wanting more. and she began haltingly to speak back. At first, it felt ridiculous. She would stand in her kitchen hands, trembling over the sink, whispering, "No, I am not your shame to carry. I am not your guilt to hold." Sometimes she would cry afterward. Sometimes she would feel a quiet, unfamiliar peace, as if the roots had loosened their hold. One night, after a difficult call with her mother, Anna felt the old ache return, sharp, suffocating, like she was being wrapped in a blanket she could not breathe through. She sat on the floor of her apartment, knees drawn to her chest, and felt a wave of despair wash over her. And then, something new. A memory her younger self, small and hopeful, waiting by the window for her mother to come home. She could almost see that little girl now, her hair messy, her eyes wide, wanting so badly to be told she was good enough. Anna closed her eyes. She imagined kneeling beside that child, gathering her into her arms. "You are enough," she whispered. "You do not have to wait at the window anymore. I am here. I will stay." In that moment, something shifted. It was not a miracle. Her mother would not change. The weekly calls would still come. There would still be guilt, frustration, longing. But Anna felt in her bones the first taste of freedom, the understanding that she could be the mother she had always needed. Over time, the dreams changed. The forest grew brighter. The roots no longer tangled around her ankles, but lay like old snakes basking in the sun. Sometimes in dreams, she saw her mother as a young woman, fearful, fragile, still carrying her own mother, complex like a stone tied to her chest. Sometimes, Anna wept for her. Sometimes, she simply let her go. Years later, Anna stood at her mother's bedside in a small hospital room. Elena was frail eyes dim, the fierce pride gone. She held her daughter's hand, whispered half-formed apologies that drifted off like smoke. Anna wept not for the mother she had, but for the girl she had been, for the countless women before them both who had carried the mother wound unknowingly, passing it on. As the machines hummed softly, Anna felt an unfamiliar calm. She realized then that the greatest act of love she could offer was not to fix what could not be fixed, but to hold her mother's hand and let her be human, flawed, scared, unfinished. When the funeral was over, and the distant relatives had drifted back to their small lives, Anna stood in her empty apartment, looking at her own reflection. She felt the old ache stir, but now it was softer, no longer a wound that controlled her life. She whispered to her reflection, "I am my own mother now." Outside, spring rain fell against the window, soft as a blessing. Anna made tea, lit a candle, and wrote in her journal, "The past lives in me, but I choose how it lives. I am the soil and the seed. I am the mother and the child." In that quiet she felt it, the presence Jung spoke, of the self emerging from the shadows. Not perfect, but whole. Not saved by her mother, nor destroyed by her, but carried forward lovingly by the mother she had become within. Perhaps now, listening to Anna's story, you can feel how deeply the threads of the mother complex run through so many lives, not just hers, but yours too. Jung never spoke of these patterns as cold theories locked away in books. He knew they live in the secret corners of our ordinary days. In the way you say yes when you mean no, in the knot in your stomach, when you feel you have disappointed someone you love, in the hidden anger that flashes when you sense you are being controlled, or in the silent grief for the tenderness you longed for but never fully received. What makes the mother complex so powerful, Jung taught, is not only that it is rooted in your earliest experience with your own mother, but that it rests on a timeless archetype, a psychic pattern far older than you, older even than your family line. And yet, because it is unconscious, it feels so very personal. It feels like your secret shame, your private burden, your unique wound. Anna's journey reminds us that there is nothing shameful about carrying this wound. It is, in a way, universal. The real question is what you choose to do with it. Jung saw that most people either remain trapped in unconscious loyalty, repeating the pain, staying smaller than they truly are, or they rebel against it without understanding, swinging between blame and idealization, stuck in a dance they do not know they are dancing. But once you see the pattern begins to lose its power. Once you recognize the mother within both the nourishing and devouring aspects, you can choose how you will relate to her. You may never change the mother who raised you. You may never get the apology, the warmth, the protection you once longed for. But Jung's great insight is that you can change how that longing lives within you now. When Anna first saw the child within her, waiting at the window, hoping to be seen, she did not push that image away. She stayed with it. She learned to kneel beside it and whisper the words she had waited her whole life to hear. This is the work of individuation, the turning inward, the conscious recognition that you are now responsible for how you hold your own heart. It is not self-blame, but self-sovereignty. The mother complex left unconscious can run your life from the shadows. It chooses the partners you are drawn to, the boundaries you fear, to set the dreams you do not dare to speak aloud. It keeps you loyal to a version of yourself that may no longer serve your soul. But once you see it, you can begin to soften it, not by violently rejecting your mother or cutting her off in anger, but by gently releasing the invisible bonds that say you must stay small to belong. Jung called this the alchemy of the psyche, the transformation that happens when you hold a complex in the light of awareness. What once ruled you becomes integrated. The devouring mother voice, once so harsh and constant, is seen for what it is, a defensive echo, not your truth. The nurturing mother, once idealized as someone you must find outside yourself, is recognized as an inner possibility, a seed that can grow as you learn to care for your own soul. Anna's story is not unique because she suffered, but because she chose to stay, to feel the grief, to write the letters that could never be sent, to speak new words to the child within. And in doing so, she did something profound. She took back the power she had unknowingly given to the past. So I invite you now to feel into your own life. Where does the mother complex still whisper to you? Where does it keep you waiting for love you already hold inside? Where does it bind you with guilt, shame, or fear that you will outgrow those who came before you? Jung would say, notice it all. Hold it without judgment. This is how the unconscious becomes conscious, not through force, but through the quiet, persistent light of your own awareness. No matter how tangled the roots may seem, they are not your prison forever. You are not doomed to repeat what was. You are not here to save your mother's wounds by sacrificing your own becoming. You are here to honor what was given and what was missing, and then to choose to live in a way that nourishes what is possible. If you take one thing from Anna's story and from Jung's vision, let it be this: the mother you seek is not only a person of the past, she is an archetype that lives within you, waiting to be reclaimed, reimagined, reparented. She is the soil you stand in, but you are the gardener now. You decide what grows. You decide what is pruned away. You decide how you will hold the child you once were with compassion, with fierce love, with boundaries strong enough to let you stand in your own life unafraid to bloom beyond what you were told you could be. This is not easy work, but it is real freedom, the freedom Jung called individuation, a freedom born not from denying the mother, but from becoming your own. So here you are at the quiet edge of this deep exploration. If you have listened with your whole heart, you already know that the mother you once longed for, the one who would see you, completely hold you unconditionally, and never let you down, may never come from outside. But Carl Jung's gift to us is this radical truth: you have the power to become her for yourself, not in some perfect storybook way, but in the daily, imperfect acts of tending to your own soul, setting boundaries where there were none, speaking gently to the parts of you that ache, protecting your own life from the patterns that once consumed you. May you remember that the past cannot be changed, but how it lives inside you can. Your mother complex is not your fate, it is your invitation. Every time you see the pattern, every time you choose to nourish your own heart, instead of abandoning it, you break the cycle a little more. You honor what came before by daring to heal what they could not. So tonight, when you lie down to rest, may you place a hand on your chest and whisper this simple mantra: I am becoming the mother I needed. If you feel moved, share this mantra in the comments below so we can witness each other's commitment to this quiet, brave revolution. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments and subscribe to Wealth Peace Eye so we can keep growing together, learning healing and becoming more whole with each step. Your journey does not end here. It begins here, one conscious breath, one loving choice at a time. May you walk it with courage and grace.